Hi guys, welcome to the Bold Beautiful Borderline podcast. It is Sarah and today is going to be different, y'all, which is kind of like the borderline story, yeah? I didn't post Sunday because I was super excited to post a surprise episode yesterday telling everyone, oh my God, I'm 2 years sober, and kind of like reflecting on that. But instead, I'm posting an episode today because we're going to talk about the emotional hangover, aka pure fucking hell that happens after pure fucking hell. Yesterday didn't quite go as planned, and it was a really hard emotional day with a ton of cycling, which I think, you know what, like, I want to talk about the real shit. So let's talk about the real shit, and then let's talk about the emotional hangover. Before we talk about this, as always, it's my responsibility to tell you I'm safe. So keep that in mind as we talk about things today. I'm safe. That's just an important warning that I give. Someone asked me once in my DMs, like, what do my emotional, quote unquote, cycles look like? And you can't see me because I'm in my emotional hangover phase of a really hard cycling day, which means I look like a garbage can lit on fire. I have crazy dark bags under my eyes. My face is really puffy. I have a hangover feeling, even though I have not had alcohol in 2 years and 1 day. And I had to lay in bed last night and repeat the mantra to myself, I will not relapse, I will not relapse, I will not relapse. Which, I mean, it would be fucking funny if I relapsed on my 2-year anniversary of not drinking. Let's be real. That would be such a Sarah borderline thing to do. But alas, here I am. I can't remember exactly how I explained the way that my cycling looks to the person that I was speaking to about it in my DMs. I don't know if there's like one original trigger so much as it's a ton of tiny little things. For me, it's a ton of sensory things often. I will just feel it building up, building up, building up. And then one thing will result in me kind of freaking out. So yesterday it was my dogs not laying down in the car, and I had been dealing with it for like 20 minutes. My husband wanted to go through the coffee line. Then he wanted to go through and pick up a Red Bull. Then he wanted to go through McDonald's, which, like, for fries, before we went on a road trip a couple hours away that he like planned to go to this beautiful place in the national park to like celebrate my 2-year anniversary of sobriety, road trip things, coffee, snacks, whatever. Maybe if I had been getting something at the last 2 places, I would have not felt so like overwhelmed by having to wait. But I wasn't, and it wasn't that I was like angry at him because he wanted those things. It was more like I have to sit in the car with the dogs, and I love my dogs more than anything in the whole world, but holy shit, sometimes they're like so overwhelming because the puppy riles Nova up. Any whining from Nova or any like Nova not taking her commands results in like a ton of distress for me because I have all of the shame around my ex-wife telling me that I like wouldn't be a good dog mom to her and that I shouldn't keep her. That just, the dog's not kind of like settling as fast as I wanted them to settle in the car, and kind of like making a lot of noise at the same time as there was like a big purse at my feet, and we were like going through these drive-throughs and stuff. So it's just like a lot of sensory things. And maybe my meds hadn't yet kicked in, but I just immediately was like, I can't fucking do this. I don't want to do this. And I didn't yell at Talon, but I just immediately like put my head down and was like, I can't fucking do this. I can't fucking do this. I can't fucking do this. And just started crying and crying and crying. The only way I can describe it is like a ton of microaggressions almost building up within me until it's the literal volcano, and it happens in a nanosecond. And I do use tools to attempt to mitigate it. And I think that's the thing that people often don't understand is like, I had already used my breathing device. I had already taken as needed anxiety medication. I had already tried some of the things that help. And it's a flip of a switch. All of a sudden, the noise is so loud. And I can kind of understand from a trauma perspective why this happens in the car for me. Growing up, I felt a lot of fear driving because of a parent that would respond really harshly if I was doing something in the car that they didn't want me to do. So I feel a lot of fear around that. And I'm just starting to uncover the impact of that now in my life. I'm really starting to understand that vehicles are a big trigger for me. The shitty thing about having kind of a cycle like that happens really quickly is that for me, on days where I start my day with something like that, it's almost like my body is primed to keep going. So I ended up having 5 or 6 of those episodes, completely ruined the day, completely ruined dinner, despite my husband being like, no, things are not ruined. I still got to do what I wanted to do with you. And I was like, well, this was a fucking nightmare hell show for me. The progress for me is unfortunately not that all of this didn't end in self-harm, because it did, but that it didn't end in me hurting my husband in any way by doing or saying anything mean. And I hate that that's the kind of threshold for which I identify if something was successful or not. But at this point in my life, that it is a success that I don't tell him he's a piece of shit or something like that, because I would have done that in the past to partners. And I did tell him several times I felt such guilt and shame that I knew that he put a lot of effort into this day, and that I couldn't do it. And I felt so rejected by simple things that he would say, and so incredibly triggered and angry by these 2 things. One, when we got to the park, he was trying to park in one area that I really didn't want to park in. It had a ton of people. I felt super out of control there, and I wanted him to go up the road and look at this other parking, which, by the way, ended up being way better. But that's not the thing. The thing is that when I felt like he didn't want to go look, my brain's first reaction is, Sarah, you're stupid. You're a piece of shit. He knows better than you. He doesn't let you have any control. Why do men never let me be in control? My entire life I felt out of control. All of this because he wanted to park in a campsite and I wanted to park in a gravel area. For people who don't have borderline that really demonize us, I want you to kind of understand that was less than 30 seconds. Something as minor as him wanting to park in a different direction than I wanted to park triggers trauma in me that instantly becomes, I'm a piece of shit. I hate myself. Why am I so fucking stupid? Why is everyone smarter than me? And all of these terrible intrusive thoughts. Most people don't understand that. But when you think about observing someone who's mood cycling, you don't see that that's what's happening inside of me. But if you can imagine putting yourself inside of me, and that's what happened over and over and over again by these tiny things. I wanted to let the dogs off the leash and my husband didn't. Oh, well, you know dogs better than I do. You know my dog that I've had for 5 years obviously better than I do. Why are you in control? Why am I so stupid to think that I could let my dogs off leash? You're telling me I can't. Well, now I have to hold my dog who wants to play in the sand and go in the water on a leash, and it's pulling me, and that's dysregulating to me. Great, I'm such a piece of shit dog mom that I can't even handle my dog on a leash. Why do I even have dogs? I should give my dog back to my ex-wife. She was right. And my husband was like, Sarah, there's just a lot of people around. It's okay that he wanted to park in a different place. It's okay that he wanted to keep the dogs on the leash. Like, I understand today that none of those things meant I was a fucking X, Y, and Z thing that I said. But I can promise you that my body was experiencing everything that I just told you that I felt about myself. And I was like trying to explain to Talon how I feel about myself in those moments. And the only word I could come up with was scum. But I felt like that didn't accurately describe it. And I, again, crying. At some point, my dog was like overwhelming me a bit by like wanting to dig. And I was just like, you know what? I'm fucking done. And I gave him Nova and I walked away. I guess I'm at a place in my life where I don't like run from things mostly anymore. Whereas all my past partners have dealt with me jumping out of the cars while, they're running or leaving a house party without a cell phone and booking it a couple blocks away and then having to beg someone for a phone to try to call so-and-so to come get me, right? That's like not where I'm at anymore. So in my brain, it's like, of course, Talon would know that I'm just walking to the car. But when he got back to the car, he was like, he had his own emotional response. Of course he did. This is like hard for him to observe. He had all these plans for the day and none of them are working out. And I know he felt out of control. And I know he feels sad for me when he watches me go through this because it's hard to watch someone you love experiencing this. When I said, "Are you angry?" because I was afraid he was angry at me, he said, "I'm not angry. I'm frustrated that you left and I didn't know where you were going and you didn't have a phone on you." In my brain, it didn't even occur to me that he might be afraid because my brain was so overwhelmed with all of the reasons why I'm not good enough and he's better than me. Even though that's absolutely not what was happening. But even as I reflect back on this, I'm feeling shame about something that I couldn't easily control. Could I have used the stop skill in that moment? Yes, I tried. The safest thing I could do would just be go back to the car and cry and try to reset and use my journal. But when I couldn't explain the way that I felt about myself in that moment to Talon, when scum didn't like feel like a good enough word, I literally said to him, the only way I can explain how I feel about myself in these moments and why this takes over is, you know how conservatives feel about our homeless population in Portland? You know, the things they say about them and the way they talk about them? And he just looked at me, right? Because both him and I are very, very left, and we have a deep desire to be able to house our homeless population, and we have deep empathy, and I understand the need to use drugs if you're houseless. Personally believe in housing people without requiring them to be sober. But I know that that's something that conservatives feel very strong about. That was the only thing that I could use to explain to him the way a conservative, and when I say conservative, I don't mean kind of moderate socially, but fiscally conservative. I mean far right. The way that those individuals feel about our houseless population in Portland. And he just kind of looked at me for the first time and was like, I understand it. Because for us, that's such a kind of visceral feeling, the way that we respond to people talking so negatively about our people. Okay, so now the fun part, the cycle. All of that was awful. That was the third time I cried and was losing my mind when I walked back to the car. And this is how fast it all turns around. Stormy was a little car sick, so she threw up, right? And of course, that's overwhelming to Talon and we're in the Olympics. It's, one way, windy roads. There's not really a place to pull over. And so I was thinking, oh my God, this is why I pack. I have these kind of like tiny little like first aid and emergency like bags that I have within my purse. They're just like always prepared, whatever, because I've learned that if I don't have something and I need it and I'm not close to where I can grab it, like brushing my teeth or ibuprofen or a face wipe or something like that, then I get really dysregulated. So I've just learned to carry that with me. And so, Sarah to the rescue, I was able to just unbuckle my seatbelt, turn around, get it all cleaned up without us having to like pull over. And then all of a sudden, my brain is like, oh my God, you're a good wife. You're a good person. All of that stuff a few minutes ago, you're not a piece of shit, Sarah. You saved the day because you cleaned up dog vomit. You guys, this is not a fucking joke. This is like literally how it goes in the borderline brain. Like, let's just take a ride on that fucking emotional roller coaster. It's so funny because in many ways, I'm like so smart and so successful, quote unquote. I have my fancy degrees and my fancy licenses, and I can talk very articulately about, X, Y, and Z. But there's this other part of me, which is like the authentic part, the non-masking part, where emotionally, I just feel like I am a fucking perpetual 12-year-old trying to figure out like puberty. And everything feels big. Something as small as my dog pulling on the leash feels really big. And something as stupid and weird as dog vomit being cleaned up makes me feel like I'm a big deal. And okay, now I can stay alive. It's okay. It's not the end of the world anymore. What do you want to listen to? You want to listen to the new Post Malone? You want to listen to Taylor Swift? You want to listen to the new Eminem? You want to put on 90s country? Like, let's go. I'm back in the game. I'm ready. I'm ready for this fucking backroads, national park, celebrate 2 years of sobriety drive. When I had just spent an hour hysterically crying at times and hiding it because I feel so much shame. Telling Talon, I never want you to do anything good for me. I ruin everything. By the way, in this story, the roller coaster isn't over. But before we get to the next part, I want to read you, prior to me feeling better, a little bit of the journaling I had done to just kind of show you like how real this is in the moment. I am so fucking tired of living my life. It is a unique kind of hell designated for the recyclers. Today is a crushed up version of yesterday, and tomorrow will be another crushed up version of today. Like cans on the side of the road. The life that is a reminder of what could have been if mental illness was not controlling the narrative. I am so afraid of the world that my dog's not laying down out of the rear view mirror for my husband to drive results in me screaming and picturing things I couldn't possibly read about on this podcast. What kind of punishment had my husband chosen for himself? There are no words he could whisper that I could understand. He could write me a book and I would call it fiction. Made up. I would never have chosen me. Why the fuck would he? Today is recycled, even though it is supposed to be a big day. 2 years sober. What an accomplishment. But these are just the days I recycle now. The sober days. Even I am so sick of hearing myself say the same thing over and over. There are people around me laughing, telling stories, sitting around fires, midday in the rainiest town in the continental U.S. It's not raining here today, and they are sucking every ounce of vitamin D from the sky, as if it makes existing on this fucking planet worth it. My husband meant well today, and I am a cunt. Oh, I can't even read it without cringing. Sometimes being borderline is pretty fucking cringy, and the emotional roller coaster, it's super cringe. And I think this is exactly why we are so demonized. Because people who don't experience the severity of these feelings that would result in us writing the most dramatic journal entry ever, even though I'm 31 years old, you can't imagine it. So you have to think it's not real. If you haven't seen or understood something, it couldn't possibly be real. So it has to be made up. It has to be dramatic. It has to be manipulative. I never imagined I would read any of my journal entries. I don't know that I want to do it much after this, but I do think it's important to show, like, if we talk about the emotional roller coaster, that this is what it looks like. So the second part of this story is pretty much just a rinse and repeat of the first. I cried a lot. I told Talon, don't make dinner for me. I'm just going to ruin it. I just want to go home and go to sleep. I kind of got my shit together a little bit on the drive. We get home. He starts making dinner. And it happened again. Something as simple as he wanted me to make the salad, but I didn't know he wanted me to make the salad. And I wanted to go over my work email for a few minutes. Resulted in me feeling like, I don't even remember what I was feeling like, but instantly I was like, oh great, I fucked up again. I ruined it again. Here we are. And then I was sitting on the stairs, crying, ruminating, looping over and over and over again. And he was telling me, you didn't ruin it. We can go back. Let's just take a minute. And by that point, it's like 6 o'clock at night, and I have just done this song and dance so many times today. It's probably like the 5th, 6th, 7th moment of tears and snot and all the gross stuff that comes along with your mood cycling so much, especially because I don't externalize the way I used to. Like, I don't yell and scream so much anymore. It takes a lot for me to get there. And there isn't anything to yell or scream about because nobody did anything wrong to me. This is all me responding to stimuli from my trauma, from this place that I'm kind of like primed to respond from, feeling stupid, and then it feels like the end of the world and all of these things, blah, blah, blah. So I'm glad I don't yell and scream. Although by the very end of this, I did tell Talon I hated him and he shouldn't be with me. But I mean, what are you going to do? At that point, I probably spent 3 hours crying and cycling and whatever. But it's really hard to go through that inside your body, right? Like, I looked back on my Oura ring and looked at my stats for the day, and I could see my heart rate just like shooting up and down and up and down and up and down. This is not good for us. I know that's not good for me. And the emotional roller coaster led to the emotional hangover. It's kind of like if we're going with the theme park theme, it's like if you're on the, what is that, wooden log thing, and you're going through the water and you get to the end. You slow down as you're going downhill, and then all the water just shoots up, and you're just kind of like sitting at the end, and you're in this log that slammed on a piece of rubber or whatever, and now it's time to get out and just keep going about your life as if you didn't go down a hill in a log without a seatbelt on and slam on a wall. Yeah, that's how the emotional hangover feels. I'm like, wait a minute. I ran a fucking marathon of emotions yesterday, and I didn't sleep. I spent all night hating myself. And today my body feels like a slug. Like I'm just like slow and slimy, and it's hard to open my eyes. And all I want to do is eat chocolate. No fruits, no vegetables. Just hit me with all the peanut butter and jelly and all the chocolate and like 37 Diet Cokes. And then I want to sleep. But you can't. You have to get up, you have to go to work, take your meds. I did eat 2 peanut butter and jellies and a lot of chocolate today, though, in between all of the work. But I'm not going to lie, it's like it's later in the evening and I am still looking at my face and seeing the puffiness. I can still feel the heaviness in my eyes. My body has been really sore today. I had to like roll and stretch. My tolerance isn't super great today. Somebody's staying at the Airbnb next door and I kind of want to open the door and scream at them to like shut the fuck up because they're being so loud. Probably the number of F words that I have dropped in this episode is an indicator of the hangover. All of the times today that I felt like I had to apologize to Talon. It's almost like I forget to stop and apologize to myself for how mean I am. I mean, these journal entries are cringy, but they're so mean to myself that I couldn't read them ethically on this podcast. I don't know how many times I said I hated myself. The emotional roller coaster is really hard to go on. And the emotional hangover is really hard to live. So the last thing before I say goodbye is I want to kind of talk about more specifically what the emotional hangover is. So an emotional hangover refers to the kind of physical, mental, emotional impacts that occur after we have a really intense experience of feeling our feelings, whether that's good or bad. So some people experience like an emotional hangover after a really good event, like a wedding or a concert or graduation or something. But just like you would have a hangover after a heavy night of drinking, an emotional hangover is pretty similar. It can leave you feeling drained, overwhelmed, exhausted. So I literally put into ChatGPT, what is an emotional hangover? And it gave me real answers. So ChatGPT says, here are the key features of an emotional hangover. 1, fatigue and mental fog. After an emotionally charged experience, you may feel tired, sluggish, or unable to think clearly. This can be due to the emotional energy expended during the event. 2, physical symptoms. Headaches, muscle tension, weakness can accompany the emotional hangover as stress hormones like cortisol may have been elevated for a prolonged period. This is why we know that trauma is so bad for our physical health, right? Like cortisol being released in the system at such high levels for extended periods of time is very dangerous. Okay, 3, residual emotions. You might continue to feel the emotions from the previous day or event, such as sadness, guilt, anger, or even joy, though in a more subdued way. For me, this is why like one cycling event often turns into 6 and then a few days, because those emotions are still kind of lingering and they can so easily be like drawn back up. 4, difficulty concentrating. This can affect our focus and productivity because your mind may still be processing the intense experience, making it hard to concentrate. So it's a good reminder of like how important the way we care for ourselves the day after one of these really hard emotion regulation days is. Food, water, sleep, get out, move your body a bit. That's going to be super helpful. 5, emotional sensitivity. After an emotional event, you're often more sensitive and prone to being easily triggered by small things, which normally wouldn't affect you as strongly. And 6, reflective or regretful thoughts. There may be lingering thoughts about what happened, especially if the emotions were negative or if the event involved conflict or loss. You might replay situations in your mind, questioning your reactions or your decisions. This is really hard for me and can create a lot of shame, a lot of distress. I swear to God, I'm still thinking about like something I said in the 5th grade and cry myself to sleep about it, every other night. Okay, so that's a little bit about the roller coaster and the hangover that happens when you experience borderline personality disorder. And I wish there was a churro afterwards, but we got to make lemonade out of lemons or something like that. I don't know. I do know that I would love to hear your thoughts. So if you experience this, send me a text, email, send me a voicemail. All of those things are in the show notes, but I'd really like to hear what your guys' experience with the roller coaster or the emotional hangover is. I hope this episode was helpful. I am going to be getting back to our interviews soon. I have a ton of stuff to edit, but I just kind of thought it would be fun to do some, I don't know, data learning. I feel like it's been a really long time since we've kind of talked about borderline like that. Hello, listeners. Thank you for tuning in to the Bold, Beautiful Borderline podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your content. That's super helpful for me in finding additional folks who want to listen to the show, want to feel seen, family members, partners who want to understand. You can also follow along at Bold, Beautiful Borderline or at Sarah's Wellness Way on Instagram. For the blog and a more extensive list of resources, go to boldbeautifulborderline.com. There you can also request to be a guest on the show, or you can do my favorite thing and leave a voicemail to be played at one of our future episodes. All of this information can be seen below in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show and get exclusive perks, consider becoming a Patreon member. Your support helps me with creating content to destigmatize BPD and all the other wild mental health struggles that I discuss on this podcast. As always, thank you so much for guests and listeners alike. I love you. Until next time, keep living and seeking joy. Information in this podcast is not medical advice, but rather experience from individuals living with mental illnesses. If you want to try a treatment that you heard about, please consult your treatment team. The music in this podcast was created by a longtime friend of mine, Corey Evans from the Evergreen Band. You can find him on Instagram at @the_Evergreen Band. Cover art was created by my husband, Talon Abbott. Their information is in the show notes. There is no producer for this show. It's all me.